Whenever I worked in primary schools with small children, I was always asked the same question. Are you a boy or a girl? I never really knew how to answer this question. Do I say I'm a boy and talk in words they already understand? Or do I say, actually, I'm neither. I'm a non-binary person and am therefore neither a boy nor a girl. Gender is not boy and girl, it's not man and woman, and it's certainly not pink and blue. Gender is a spectrum. But before we're even born, when our sex is revealed by our parents, we are put into these boxes of how we have to behave, how we have to look, what job we're going to get, what our partners are going to be like. We are put into a box that we have to follow every single day of our lives because society dictates that is so. But gender identity is not about your parts, it's about how you feel. Transgender people are those who don't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. Another thing that categorizes transgender people is the dysphoria that you feel pretty much every single day of your life. Dysphoria is that pain inside you, you know something's not quite right. Whether that's because of the entity you are as a whole, or because of your parts, or just because of the way your mind works. Dysphoria is a pain, and it's something that we suffer from pretty much every day of our lives. Every single transgender person, binary or non-binary, is valid completely. Whether they're having a hormonal transition, whether they are going through surgery, whether they are simply just being an authentic version of themselves. Every single transgender person is valid, and we should never question someone's transition simply because it's not like ours or something we imagined. If you've come across this term before, transgender, or even if you're coming across it for the first time today, you may think that transgender is also a binary, and this is simply not the case. Non-binary is one of the many plethora of ways that we can discuss people being transgender and being outside of that binary of man and woman. The spectrum incorporates so many different identities. Sometimes they exist outside of gender completely. A lot of non-binary people will also use pronouns that are different from men and women. Men and women tend to use he and she as their pronouns to describe themselves, whereas non-binary people often use the term they. Now, I know that a lot of you will probably think that they is a collective term for a group of people, and therefore grammatically it's incorrect to use it for a singular person. We're trying to incorporate it into our language the same way we incorporate words from different languages. It's something that we can do, and that if we push for, we can start to understand. The more that you do it, the more that you help people like me. Another pronoun that's sometimes used is ze. This isn't as popular as they, but it's something that some people use, so please try and respect people's pronouns no matter what they are. My own experience of coming out took a long time. I'm only 23, so really in the grand scheme of things, it didn't take that long. But when it comes to every single day of your life, every day drags on. And when you know that you're not being your authentic self, you're not telling the world who you truly are, that becomes longer and it becomes more arduous and more tiresome. I came out as bi at the age of 15. I came out as gay at 17. I came out as non-binary at the age of 21. And finally, I changed my name and I feel so much better for just being able to be my authentic self. Like I've said, it took a long time. It also took a shed load of support. I have my friends around me, I have my family around me, but at the time of my transition, when I was really figuring out what was going on, I had a group of trans women who sat down with me and answered my questions, who made me feel so secure in myself. I could ask anything. I could tell them anything. And they would say, you know what? Just be you. Just be happy with the person that you are, and everything is going to be fine. So the way I'd like to introduce non-binary to you today is talking about the impact of being non-binary on people's lives like my own. The first thing I'd like to talk to you about today is the fact that we have to out ourselves pretty much every day if we want to be visible. If we want people like you to understand who we are and what that means to be us, we have to tell you who we are. We have to explain that we're non-binary. We have to explain our pronouns. We have to explain ourselves to you and hope that you understand, or at least that you're going to try. This is very scary. And a lot of the time, I try and pass as male because that's easier. I'd rather not do that, but I'm just so scared of rejection that it seems so much simpler to just say, I'm a man. I don't want to do that anymore, and that's why I'm on this stage today. because I want to make sure that I'm visible, that you know that I'm proud of who I am, and that I don't want to change for anybody. The second thing I would like to talk to you about is the use of public bathrooms. Now, for the majority of you, going to the bathroom in public is as simple as walking through a door and doing your business. For non-binary and trans people in general, it's not that simple. A lot of us will stand outside a bathroom for about 10 minutes just figuring out which one we're going to go into. The reason for this being that if you go into a man's bathroom and you look too feminine, there's a very high chance that you're going to be verbally abused or physically abused, or both. If you go into a women's bathroom and you look too masculine, you're probably going to make those people feel quite uncomfortable in that space, and again, potentially suffer from verbal abuse. You may say to me, Graysen, why don't you just use the disabled bathroom? It's not gendered, it makes a lot of sense, it's accessible for you. Just go in there and stop whining. However, disabled bathrooms are not there for people like me. They're there for people who are disabled, and I am not. That disabled access is there for easy accessibility and there for safety of disabled people. Therefore, by going into that space, I'm taking advantage of this space that doesn't belong to me and it doesn't suit me, and I don't like that. One time, I went into a disabled bathroom because there was no other option. The other two toilets were being cleaned, and I really needed to go. So I went into that disabled bathroom, thinking nothing of it, and when I left, a woman on crutches who looked very angry said to me, "You don't look very disabled." I had no idea how to respond to that. That was terrifying. I tried to explain what was going on, that I simply couldn't use the other bathrooms, and I felt guilty as hell that I couldn't get out of that situation. Another issue with disabled bathrooms and bathrooms in general, and the fact that we don't just have gender-neutral bathrooms as an option, is the fact that there are so many people who are so afraid to use the bathroom in public that they will cause themselves to have urinary tract infections, which can lead to kidney infections and bladder infections, and ultimately hospitalization. There are people in this world who are so afraid of using the bathroom in public that they have been hospitalized and catheterized. Doesn't that seem just a little bit ridiculous when all we could do is put a gender-neutral sign on a bathroom and say, "You're all bloody well welcome to go here"? The next thing that I want to talk to you about is the fact that legally, I don't exist. Legally, I do not have a document that says that my identity is valid. Just like this person on the screen, I want to be valid. I want to put up a picket sign and say, "Look at me and accept me and give me some legal documentation that says I am allowed to be here." My passport says I'm male, but I'm not. But that's the closest thing that I could get to being my authentic self on paper. Another thing that goes along with legal documentation is the fact that if I wanted to get married to my partner tomorrow, I'd have to be a husband. I couldn't be just a spouse or a partner. I'd have to have that male label attached to myself, and that's not something I want to do. But I really want to get married one day, and so I'm really hoping that over time we can change these viewpoints and change legal documentation so that I can get married as the person that I authentically am. The trans community is often very loving, very supportive, and a place that I'm proud to be part of. But sometimes the worst attacks come from within my own community. It's really hard to face up to the fact that there are trans people who don't think that my identity is valid, that don't think that I should exist, call me the fad, call me names, and think that I don't belong here. I do belong here. But when you have that safe space taken away from you, you feel violated and you feel isolated. We are not all androgynous. We don't all look like this. Some people are more feminine. Some people are more masculine. Some people just throw on clothes in the morning and don't care what they represent. They are just themselves. And that should be okay. One thing, though, that makes me really happy about this world is the fact that there are loads of medical professionals who back us now. These medical professionals work in a place called the GIC, the Gender Identity Clinic. There are several of these all over this country, and I'm really lucky to be a part of that system. These professionals help people like me who want to have a hormonal transition, who want to have a surgical transition, who just need help from someone who really understands what it means to be transgender. 3 years ago, I went to my first appointment at the GIC in London, and they told me there was a very high chance they would not endorse me. The reason for that being that I was non-binary, and I'd been open about that. I hadn't gone in saying I'm a trans man to get ahead, because I could have done that. My transition would have been so much simpler if I'd have lied. But I told the truth, and I was told that that wouldn't really help me, because there was no data to back up the fact that I exist, and there was no data to back up the fact that they could help me at all. 3 years down the line, everything has changed, and it's changed because people like me have said openly that they are non-binary. Pronouns are being used that are correct, and they're asking me if I'm still using these pronouns. They're asking me what I want out of my transition, and they're putting all of the control of that transition on me, and that feels amazing. This phenomenal progress makes me so pleased, but sometimes this progress is tainted by the fact that general practitioners can still be transphobic and still use their power to stop referrals from being given to people like me. If your GP says to you, I'm not going to give you that referral, it's simple. You're not going to get that referral. You're not going to be able to go to the GRC. You're not going to be able to get your hormones. You're not going to be able to get your surgery. And if that's what you want, hearing that is devastating, and it ruins people's lives. I was really, really lucky with my GP. My GP that I went to at the time was the one that was the expert in transgender issues. I walked into that room thinking he would understand everything I was going to say. It was going to be amazing. I sat down, I explained myself. He didn't have a clue what I was talking about, even though he was supposed to be the expert. But he was kind enough to say to me, you seem to know a lot more than I do, so here's your referral. I was so lucky, and there are so many people who are not as lucky as me, and that makes me really sad. I feel like the more awareness we have, and the more training there are for GPs, and more people going into the GICs to work for people like me, to help people like me, provide a service that we need, that's going to be a big benefit to our lives. I would like to end my talk on how you, everyone, can be a good ally. The first thing that you can do is use people's pronouns. Ask about their pronouns. If you don't know what pronouns people use, just ask. There is a small percentage of people that might be offended by that, but the majority of us want you to know so you can get it right. Another thing with this, if you get it wrong, don't stand there and spend 5 minutes apologizing. Just say it once and move on. The next time you get it right, we'll be so happy. The second thing is don't assume anything about someone's gender, especially when it comes to the bathroom. If someone spent 10 minutes outside that bathroom figuring out which one they're going to go into, and you question it, I'm sorry, but I don't really care about your input. Don't give it to me. The third thing is petitions. There is progress happening right now. There are people who are putting petitions out there to change things, to change the lives of people like me and my friends. Sign these petitions. Go out of your way to make a point about the fact that you support me. You support people like me. The last thing that I'd like to say is that I just want you to understand me. I want you to understand people like me. And if that takes a lot of effort, fine. Please try and make that effort. There are lots of LGBTQI+ people who are homeless right now, and especially the youth. And this is due to families, parents, grandparents, distant family members not supporting the transition of a young person. If someone comes to you and says, I'm confused, I need help and I need your support, please, even if it doesn't make much sense to you, give it to them. And try and go out of your way to find research, find data to back it up. It's out there and you can find it. Every single person's journey is long and hard, and it's an individual thing. But we need the rest of you to support us. We need more allies. And I really hope that every single one of you here can be that for us.